What's up guys, this is Saman from Aesthetic Progression, and in this video I am going to talk to you about compound exercises versus isolation exercises. Now, if you ask anybody, well, I shouldn't say anybody, but majority of the people, if you ask them what's the difference or which one is better, I should say, they would say compound movements are better. Now, before I give you my opinion, let me just explain a little bit what the compound movements and isolation exercises are. So, compound movements are the movements that involve movements of two or more joints, okay? So, for example, let's talk about bench press. So, when we are bench pressing, our arms are flared out like this, okay? And as we go down, we move our elbow, we move our wrist and shoulders, right? So, there will be a movement of two joints, okay? There will be an involvement of obviously triceps, shoulders, as well as chest. So it works multiple number of muscles, okay? An isolation exercise, on the other hand, would be like something like a bicep curl. So if you're doing like a bicep curl here, we are only working one joint, we're only working our biceps, okay? Or maybe a little bit of forearms, but basically it's a movement in one joint, in one plane of motion. So a lot of people, due to that reason, would say that the compound movements, you know, like bench press, squats, deadlift, military press, are superior because it works out a lot more muscle at once. It increases, or I should say, triggers testosterone productions, triggers fat loss and everything. So, you know, even some people will say that you should eliminate isolation movement and just take down to bread and butter movements, the four core movements, okay? But if you want to ask my opinion, then I would say that, you know, compound movements are really effective, but isolation movements are required and necessary and has its own unique advantages as well. Now, if you ask me what kind of advantages, I would say, okay, so first of all, let's go with, you know, compound movements work more than one muscle at a time. That's a huge advantage, and in some cases it's going to be a disadvantage as well. So for example, my arms, if my arms are really big and I don't want to work out on my triceps, and if I do bench press, I'm forced to use my triceps, okay? I can't really isolate. I mean, there are some ways where you can isolate a little bit more than the other techniques, even on the bench press, but to be honest, you will involve a lot more of triceps anyways, right? Compared to my flies, I'll be only working my chest and maybe a little bit of deltoids. Another example would be, mostly compound movements are focused on free weights, okay? I wouldn't say all of it, but most of them are involved with free weights. The problem with free weights is you can't target a specific muscle, okay, or specific angle, I should say. So, for example, if you are doing squats, okay, and if you really want to focus only on your quads, that's going to be I should say, if you're doing squats and you want to only focus on your quads, that's going to be a lot more difficult than doing leg extension, where you're doing primarily using only quads, okay? Other example would be people that are injured and want to target some specific muscles. Isolation exercises are going to be your best bet. Plus, if you want to, again, another example of targeting a specific muscle is going to be your lagging body parts. For example, your deltoids. If you only work your the military press, you are going to work out the front part of the deltoids, of the frontal deltoids. Okay, you are going to work your rear. Now, if your rear deltoid is not stronger and your front deltoids overcompensates, then that kind of leads to injury. So if you always do the military presses, then you know you might get injured. Now, if you want to work on your rear delts, you have to do some rear delt flies, or like in a reverse pectoral flies like this, okay? So that's again an isolation movement. So the moral of the whole conversation is going to be, let me just give you a quick example, okay? If you are a carpenter or a mechanic, or if you are into cars, building cars or houses, or, you know, do-it-yourself kind of stuff, then you will realize hammer and screwdriver probably are the most important tools that you can put on your toolbox, okay? But not all the jobs are done with those two tools. You will need a multiple amount of tools, okay? Just because you use hammer and screwdriver the most, that doesn't mean that your toolbox should have no place for something like an Allen wrench, because in certain situations you have to use an Allen wrench. So hopefully this example helps, okay? And hopefully that you will understand that picking, you know, something and staying by its side is not going to be most optimal thing you want to do if you want to reach your goals as soon as possible. And again, that's about it, guys, for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me down in the comment section below. Also, also feel free to like my videos and like my Facebook fan page. And also then I will see you guys next week. Bye bye.